Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pisgah Podcast.
We are your hosts. I'm Mangler, and that is Drew, and you are listening to Pisgah. We're coming to you live from the field at the end of Jarrett Creek Road.
Man, this road isn't quite as long as it seems like it is when you come from the other side of it.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's talk about news and updates for the past week. Pisgah was closed, and DuPont Single Track is still closed until January the 31st.
Yeah, so a lot of western North Carolina is still covered in a blanket of melting snow.
Yeah, some areas are more and some areas are less. Just know it's going to be wet in a lot of those places for quite a while.
Yeah, it looks like we're just still kind of waiting around for that third Indian summer to hit to warm us back up.
Right. And most of all the parkways closed for vehicular traffic, which means it's a pretty good adventure spot right now, but just be careful out there on those icy spots.
Yeah, especially coming out of those tunnels, you can get some interesting ice buildups. But yeah, we've got a big episode for you guys here this week. Drew and I spent some time out at Old Fort last weekend for the G5 groundbreaking ceremony. So we've got a bunch of people on the mic, so a lot of voices for you to hear, so buckle up.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick Larson. I'm the district ranger here on the Grandfather. I just want to say how incredibly excited I am about this project. Where we started with the project, kind of where it's come. Today we're going to be breaking some ground on a project that'll lead us to about 42 miles of new trail system here in McDowell County, which is phenomenal. Yeah, thank you. So I'm looking out at this crowd today, and there's a ton of familiar faces. So I know for a fact that many of you guys are intimately invested in this project, that many of your agencies, your organizations, your volunteer hours are the reason that we're able to make this. But even more important than the 42 miles of trail and the connections to our existing trail that we're making, the connections to the Fonta Flora, the connections to the community with this project are what I'm incredibly proud of. These concepts started with a way to get people more engaged and more access to their national forest. And we did that with the help of McDowell County, with the help of leaders in Old Fort. And I'm just impressed regularly with what we've got. There's two people in particular back here that I want to call out and make sure that they get an awful lot of thanks. But Lisa and Jason have been with this project from the absolute inception and have really been driving it. So I know many of you guys have worked with them and appreciate their leadership on it. And the credit for this effort goes to you guys for sure. Super exciting project. Can't wait to have another first here in the first parcel of national forest east of the Mississippi. So thank you guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Old Fort. Yeah, okay, that's great. My name is David Billstrom, and I'm one of the leaders at Kitsbo, but more importantly, with my wife, Jen, who is right here. We are two of many citizen activists who are trying to make things better in our community and help build more community. So that's the role I'm in here today. And with that idea, we're going to start first with Roy Harris, who is a storyteller.
I just called my buddy and I says, I don't know where I'm at, but follow Curtis Creek Road, and when you see a lot of white folks, I'm somewhere in there. And so he started laughing and he said, no, we got to sign checks at the church today, and so you got to come back. Let me just say that when I got this call to be here and to ask to say some words in the spirit of Martin Luther King, I really didn't know what I was getting into. If any of you know Steffi Twitty, you pretty much know that she don't tell you everything. She encourages you to do something or to ask you to do something for her or with her or in name of something. And so But it's right in line with what I'm all about. One of the things is that as I started my 71st year, going on 72 years on this earth, I decided to have a theme this year. And that theme was, for my birthday, which is May, the theme basically was to go where no brother has gone before. I think I'm in one of those spots. But as we were coming up here, Stephanie's husband was showing me all of his work and some of the things that he had done. And then they took me downtown Old Fort, which my history with Old Fort was the blizzard of '93. I was at the bottom of the mountain that Saturday night trying to get up. So I'm impressed. I am impressed about this project. I'm impressed about y'all. I'm impressed about, what did Martin Luther King say? Former slave owners and former slave children would come together one day to do something like this. Thank you very much, and I look forward to coming back at some point and walking the trails, walking the creeks, and doing those kinds of things. God bless you, good luck, and I'll be back.
So while standing out in the field at the end of Jarrett Creek Road, we stood kind of oddly in a spaced out crowd, respectful of minding our own little social distance bubbles.
Yeah, we had Mr. Roy Harris. He kicked it off with some words in his storytelling fashion and with his bucket list hopes of walking some portion of the Appalachian Trail, or now just maybe spending a while poking around the new Old Fort trails this summer when they're open.
As David Billstrom shuffled through the lineup of guest speakers, there was one that spoke to what I think a lot of us users of the forest overlook sometimes, and that's the history of the area that we're in.
Yeah, Dr. Jen Foster Gates from UNC Chapel Hill and Christopher Whitmore from Texas Tech have been working on the archaeological aspect side of studying the zones around the Old Fort area. Dr. Gates was on hand for this ceremony, and she shared some words for the crowd.
I'm here to set the project in the context of time. That's quite a portfolio that I'm asked to cover. So I just am going to start by saying that I'm here to represent a large group of archaeologists and historians who are affiliated with universities across the state of North Carolina and beyond, including Texas Tech. My colleague Christopher Whitmore, who many of you have met and talked to over the last several years, who couldn't be here today, but I know would like to be here to see this momentous occasion. So our group has been part of this project from the kind of midpoint, I think. I think that's fair to say. And one of the tasks that we were brought in to confront was thinking about a project like this in the broader landscape of human use and human engagement of this beautiful landscape over deep time. And so one of the things that this project does that I think is really unique and unlike any other kind of development project of this type in the last 50 years is that it takes as part of its mission from the very beginning an inclusive, deep, and braided approach to the many pasts that humanity has brought to this landscape. And so as archaeologists and historians who are here to be part of the conversation, to help craft welcoming and inclusive materials to help us all reflect on the deep engagement of humanity with this area across the Native American past, the African American communities past, both enslaved and free in this area, in addition to the European settler history and the ecological and industrial history of this forest landscape. We've been tasked with helping to open some of those stories and to tell some of those stories in ways that will encourage and support, that welcomes the community and supports the community's engagement with these new and critical open spaces, these new ways of experiencing the forest. So as these have been developed, it's been a privilege to be part of that process, and we anticipate and look forward to many years of ongoing collaboration as we develop materials that welcome and support a broad and diverse and deep engagement with this beautiful place. So our universities are honored to be part of this project. We look forward to many more fruitful years of collaboration, and we thank all of you on the stage for the opportunity to be part of this incredible process. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
And one idea that was mentioned a while back during our episode with the G5 Collective was how there would be some points of interest of signage installed within the trail system to kind of educate the users on something of significance of that area.
Yeah, right. Who doesn't like to know just a little bit more about the surroundings that you have? Educational signs are a great way to learn that 1% more that you wouldn't have known otherwise, and to let you know the difference between a tulip poplar and a sycamore tree, or what bugs reproduce underneath that canopy.
Yeah. And we had representatives from both Senators Tom Tillis and Richard Burr offices speak at the groundbreaking. Both of those guys are avid outdoorsmen of sorts, and apparently Tom Tillis is an avid mountain biker.
Yeah, that caught me off guard.
Yeah, well, Senator Tillis, have your people reach out to us. We'd love to talk bikes with you.
We caught up with a few locals during the groundbreaking event to get their take on how this is going to affect their futures.
I'm Adam Hobbs, and I live in Black Mountain. This new Old Fort Trails project is a big deal, not only for those of us that love the outdoors currently, but for generations in the future. As someone that benefited from being outside and shaped kind of my life as a young kid, this is going to be a big deal for those people in this immediate area. Personally, I'm stoked because I ride bikes, and it's going to be really killer to hit some new trails and finally get some connectors going on the classics, such as Heartbreak. Super pumped about this and what it's going to do for the community. I see this project as being super beneficial. I have 2 young kids, both of which are being outside all the time, one of which is just starting to ride bikes. And to have this thing like literally in our backyard, a couple miles away, is going to shape what she does in the future and how she chooses to spend her time outside.
This Trails project wouldn't be where it is without people like Lisa Jennings at the U.S. Forest Service. She has been working with the local trail user groups with her role in the grandfather district across the region and has helped the G5 make huge strides in this development.
Absolutely. It's crazy to think of what's changed in a year from this project. I mean, we were just starting to look at the environmental reviews last winter and finishing up the flag lines, and now we're like building trail next week. It's pretty fast in government timeframes.
I would say it's lightning fast as far as government timeframes go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you hear people say the pace of the government, right? And they're not talking about fast. And so a big part of doing this in the time frame that we've had is because of the community's support and what they've brought, not only from collaboration, but financially to make that happen.
Talk to us a little about timeline. It seems like a lot of stuff has really happened in the past couple of months, maybe?
Yeah, really everything came together kind of at the end of the summer in August and September when we learned that phase 1 was funded by the Dogwood Health Trust. And that's something that, was kind of a target, but when it became real, it was that domino effect of we knew we had the funding, we were almost to a decision, and things just fell into place in kind of a magical way so that we could move on to building as soon as the Forest Service approved the project.
What was the Forest Service approach like when you were pitching all this stuff to them? Were they receptive to everything?
I think when you talk about new trails, and especially at this scale, there's rightly a lot of questions of, can we build it? And more importantly, can we maintain it? And how are we going to do that? So on the Grandfather District, we already have about 300 miles of trails. So anything we have adds to that. And we know that government budgets aren't always the best. And so that aspect of volunteerism early on and showing that people were committed to maintaining trails was huge in that internal buy-in.
Yeah, I think an example of what you guys have going on over in Mortimer with those projects probably helped.
Yeah, really, this Old Fort project is one piece of what we've been doing on the Grandfather, and I don't think we could be here today if it wasn't for the folks in the Mountain Bike Alliance and the Mortimer Project and Wild South in Linville that kind of set the stage for these collaborative projects and showed that, yes, we can do this, yes, we can build more trail, and this is a good model. Now, Old Fort's kind of like that plus rocket fuel, right? Bigger, better, more partners, and really it's the right fit for the community. And that's what I think about a lot in trails is what's the right fit for the community.
When you were pitching stuff to some of your higher ups and you're mentioning of how this was driving the community, did that help a lot?
Yeah, it's really important that The Forest Service is just a piece of what's in the community. You know, it's not all about us, but it's recognized that the Pisgah is something that is part of the community. And so both from the Forest Service side and then from what we're doing here in Old Fort, it's important not to just build the trails, but to think about how that changes a town and have partners like Stephanie and Levita and Jason who can make those changes in town, looking at affordable housing, looking at business development, because what we don't want to do is push out the locals.
You guys have made a lot of progress in the past couple months. What's the next couple months look like?
The next couple months looks really exciting. So, right, we broke ground today, and if it wasn't going to snow like a foot overnight, they would start building trail Monday. So that's probably pushed back a couple days just until we can get out there. But we'll have single track trails on the ground starting next week, building some of the intermediate multi-use trails, and then Trail Dynamics will come in a couple weeks and start building those easy hike bike trails. So really, the next few months, we're going to be building trail every day. We'll get started on the parking lot and then opening everything all at the same time in summer.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I think, we're not going to just open a piece here, open a piece there. We'll have everything at once. We'll have a big ribbon cutting celebration, and then folks can come experience the new trailhead, the new trails, and I just can't wait to see how they're built. You know, I've scrambled through the woods and you can visualize it, but I'm excited to see what these trail builders bring to it and what they can incorporate into the trail to make it really unique and bring that vision to life.
Well, it sounds like I'll probably be sticking a microphone in your face again in about 6 months or so.
I hope so, yeah. We'll definitely throw another party in 6 months, and I think everybody in Western North Carolina is going to be so excited to see these trails, because this project at this scale is unheard of, especially on Pisgah, and so we know that's a big deal, and we want everybody to be part of it.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming out.
This project certainly has an economic impact on the surrounding communities. Old Fort obviously being at the center, but all of McDowell County should feel a lift from this. Noah here has a few words regarding.
Sure, my name is Noah Wilson. I'm the Director of Sector Development at Mountain BizWorks, which is a community development financial institution, basically a financing organization, training organization for small businesses. It covers the whole western quarter of the state, all the mountains. This is one of the most brilliant examples I've ever seen of community and economic development around the outdoors. And it is just the way in which people came together across all the lines you can imagine, right, within a community and around this community to really translate the opportunity that lay in this landscape here, which had really been untapped in many ways, into this collaborative effort to develop trail systems that are going to change the face of this town for the better for a long time. It makes me inspired whenever I hear about it. I've been watching it from the background and from the kind of supporting sidelines, as it were, for years now. And to see how fast this has come together, this is the equivalent of like a 4-minute mile. I've said it before, I'll say it again, man. It's because everybody's behind it. And it's because they've done so much hard work behind the scenes to bring people in, set a bigger table, show everyone why they all benefit, and then just drive it together.
Yeah, amen.
I love it, man. This is one of the most transformational projects I've ever seen in my history of work, in my lifetime, and I think it's going to spark dozens of other ones around Western North Carolina and far beyond our borders.
Let's hope so. Well, thanks for coming.
Sure thing, man.
When we first did the G5 Kitspo and Ride House episodes, there was talk and mention of how Old Fort was without a bike shop and that the Ride House was working on launching that. Well, a few months later, Chad Schoner stepped in to open up the shop inside the Ride House. Chad has a history in the bike world around Western North Carolina, and so we caught up with him during the reception following the groundbreaking ceremony to talk about his involvement.
Okay, my name's Chad Schoenauer. I'm the owner and operator of Schoenauer Service Course, which is a bicycle service and repair shop located inside the Kitspo Ride House in Old Fort, North Carolina. When I came to look for a location for a business here, I reached out to David and Jen Billstrom, who I had met through working with the book Walter Binge. I had done some announcing and interacted with Jen through that, and I was like, well, they run this business, Kitsbo, down here. I'm going to see how connected they are to here and see if they have any guidance. After talking to both of them, we worked it out to where I'm basically run a separate business inside Kitsbo, and yeah, it looks like I'm on the cusp of a wave of business and exciting times. So the goal of the shop is basically to kind of have a place if you have that last minute fix that you need, or if you want to treat your bike to some service to where your bike is going to perform close to what it was new. Those are the kind of services that I offer. I'm really big on drivetrain cleaning.
And that's really big for Western North Carolina.
Yeah, I coined the phrase Pisgah paste. You know, it's that substance, the grit that will clog everything on your bike, coat your chain, work into your pivots, and grind everything down. You know, for a small fee, I pull drivetrains off, clean them, and make them shiny and new, and it makes everything last so much longer if you just clean your bike. Clean your bike, people.
Absolutely.
I enjoy the small town feel. I have connected with local community very quickly. They've been very receptive to the idea of a bike shop down here. I don't know if there's ever been one down here. Business-wise, people are finding out about me. Not only am I bringing people that have been longtime clients of mine from Asheville down here, but I've had people come from Rutherfordton, Charlotte, Boone, Spruce Pine, Brevard, all over the region. They stop in, they see what I do, and they come back and they bring work, and it's working out.
Well, is there any way for people to keep up with you on social media?
I'm at sscbikerepair.com. I'm also at, let's see, it's SSC Bike Repair on Instagram as well, and on Facebook. And if you just Google Schoenauer Service Course, you'll find me. Feel free to email or DM or whatever the kids are calling it these days.
Slide into them.
Right.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
Then there are volunteers who, no matter what their background or level of previous involvement is, see this project and just know that now is the time to get involved.
My name is Camilla Poole. My role is a volunteer for G5 Trail Collective. My partner and I started volunteering with G5 back in the fall. I think we first signed up as volunteers sometime in September. And, you know, we've been in the area for well over 20 years and not doing a lot with trail work, with community building up until the last couple of years. And when we learned about G5 and what they were doing with Old Fort, our love of Grandfather Mountain District, the Pisgah area, it just fell into place. And this is an area that has, I think, needed that community to come together.
You just mentioned that you felt Old Fort needed this. What are a couple reasons that you feel like Old Fort needed?
Old Fort is a small community, and it's one of the most beautiful areas. I'm in love with Linville Gorge, up the mountain, the Grandfather Mountain District. There's so many cool hiking and biking trails out here, and Old Fort is a small community. And there's a lot of, you know, when the industrial businesses went out of business largely, it didn't seem to grow. And there's a lot of growth potential. So when Kitsbo came, what is that, almost 2-3 years ago now? That sparked my interest in Old Fort and kind of going back to it, looking at it with a different eye, a different lens, and just wanting to be a part of helping the community, helping build trails that are accessible to everybody.
Being part of this project and the volunteer work that you're putting in, one thing that I've continuously heard from people is how impressive that it's come together this quick. And it sounds like you've been in the area and part of the mountain biking community for a while. You know, we've heard the rumors of projects over the time, this and that's going to happen, there's going to be trails here, and they never come together. How does it feel being part of a project where your volunteer work is actually getting something completed and things are moving forward. There seems to be momentum behind it.
It fills me with hope. This has been a hard couple of years for the world, and I think for me personally, just seeing a community from different areas. I mean, I've met volunteers with G5 that live in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
There's people that want to do good. And I don't know how the momentum grew so fast, and all I could say is that Camp Greer has been an establishment for so long that I didn't know about Camp Greer. Just seeing many people come together today. In fact, our trail work day on Roston Trail at Camp Greer, I think we had over 15 volunteers today. We knocked out so much work. Mm-hmm. It just makes me feel hopeful and excited. A organization that's collaborative or collective, but it is an organization that is driving accessibility to people that are disabled from ways to getting outdoors. Whether, so we're talking about people that may have, disabilities to the point of having adaptive bikes, for instance. And so there is a focus on building some of these trails that will be accessible to adaptive riders.
I think that's very neat, because as mountain bikers, we tend to hear, when they talk about making trails for everybody, we think, we'll have a flow trail and a technical trail. But we don't think about people who can't ride a proper bike, or people that, may have trouble accessing certain parts of the forest and things like that.
Yeah, and as an adaptive riders, it's not, it could be, a person that's completely paralyzed from the waist down. It could be a person that has a prosthetic. Mm-hmm. And I think it's wonderful that there's that discussion going on. Like, it's not just about getting everybody in the community, but it's also people that don't have the proper, quote unquote, gear to get out, but equally they should be able to.
Absolutely. I think if it has anything to do with recreating outside, any barriers that are there should be removed, because we kind of live in a society now where people are behind screens all the time, and I think we have a generation that's kind of lost on being able to just exist outside and maybe not even have to be doing any specific activity, but just be outside.
Exactly. It's not just about, doing some kind of rad sport that's, wild skills. I mean, if it's just going out, hanging a hammock and reading a book out in the woods and feeling safe and knowing where to go and having clear markers, and that's important.
One thing that I see, and I don't know if this is the case or not, but it looks like maybe Old Fort just kind of paid attention to what happened to Brevard over the past 15 years. Just kind of raised their hand and said, hey, we'd like some of that too. Yeah. And so far it seems to be working.
Yeah, and I think Kitspo is, maybe a part of the catalyst for that movement too. They've been so supportive of not just G5, but local businesses in this area. Yeah. I think, that's, from what I have heard from others, a driving force of bringing in more affordable housing for residents here, for their employees. And that's important. I mean, that's definitely important to me everywhere. Yeah. Well, I will say this. Another driving force, not just being a part of something amazing, I have wanted to learn how to maintain trails. I have wanted to learn how to build trails. I am a big advocate of, if you ride them, if you walk it, if you ride your horse on it, then yeah, you should be taking part and taking care of it. Even if it's 4 times a year.
Even if it's just picking up some litter.
Absolutely.
I think that's an overlooked part of trail maintenance that doesn't often get talked about.
Absolutely. And that doesn't take a collective effort. That's just you out on the trail taking the time, have a backpack with you, or a lumbar pack. No, I agree. But that has been a driving force. I want to learn, and my husband does too. And it's, what a great way to learn trail building, volunteer.
Right.
And tell your trail leader, I'm a beginner, help me. Like, I want to understand what we need to do
And if
today.
you learn by actually doing it, then you retain the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Drew.
So moving on from the trails to the town of Old Fort and its involvement and benefits from the project, it's brought a lot of people into the mix.
This is Stephanie Swepson Twitty, President and CEO for Eagle Market Streets Development Corporation, native of Old Fort, and excited today to be in community with folks who are developing a new image for Old Fort. One of the things that we desired right from my work inception of Eagle Market Streets was to be able to expand out to McDowell County, more specifically Old Fort, because it was my home.
We've just had the wonderful news of this beautiful giant building right here in the middle of town acquired. So talk to me a little bit about what you guys have going on with that.
So our plans for the Old Fort Community Building is to put it in service as a mixed-use commercial product with light manufacturing, office, and retail operations, a meeting and convention or conference space, and possibly the secret sauce, a community school that has risen up here very recently.
Yeah, so I know you've had a lot of stuff going on with this whole project here. How do you see Old Fort changing since, you said you were a native here, was this even in your wildest dreams?
Absolutely not, particularly me as a centric piece of what would happen. I, again, as a native, can remember when there was vibrancy in the area. We had manufacturing as a king, and then when it went offshore, we absolutely became almost a ghost town. However, we kept what is now Aria, used to be Collins and Aikman. We kept Ethan Allen, and they moved us along until Kitspo came a couple of years ago and just really spurred the resurgence of what a town could become. So we're so excited about that.
Was Kitspo a surprise to you?
A little bit, only because I wasn't as closely tied to community development at the time that Kitspo came. But once they were here, I continued to press the board that this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do in terms of bridging that divide between urban and rural development. So, yeah.
So let's talk a little about the groundbreaking today. What was your expectations going into that?
Well, we had been following the trend in terms of Eventbrite and what we thought the event might bring in terms of attendance. However, when I got up this morning and I saw the sky, I said, okay, folks are going to go, nah, not so much. But when I looked out on that sea of faces supporting this effort, I was at once humbled and privileged to be in that space.
In your life, have you experienced much outdoor life, or is that kind of a little foreign to you?
No, actually it's not. I was just sharing with some colleagues not too long ago that when we were children growing up here in Old Fort, the woods was our playground. So for us to get up and get our chores done and be outside by typically 10:30, 11 in the morning, which was the parents' choice, and the next move was to the woods, building houses, building trails, experiencing that. In my adult life, I've always, walking is my most favorite exercise, and so I have had a great desire to be able to hike. Just haven't had that exposure to this point, but I am so looking forward to what the trails will do in offering even a senior an opportunity to be in nature in that way.
Okay, so how do you see the future going for a year out? You got this great new space expanding, you got the trails built. What do you see?
Right. So I see an urgency around being intentional about developing what I call smart growth. We don't want to build housing and we don't have jobs. We don't want to build jobs and we don't have housing. We want to build them together. And so I see this project and the trails representing that push towards smart growth. I also see awesome opportunity for economic stability and vibrancy to come to the area.
Yeah, it seems like what Kitspo is doing and what you guys are pushing, you're not pushing for those base hourly jobs. You're looking to build careers.
Exactly, 100%. As we build out the Old Fort community building, we will 100% be encouraged by businesses who want to pay more than a living wage, who want to work with their employees to have careers and not just jobs.
Awesome. Anything else you think we should touch base on?
Not at this time, just to say how excited I am about today and about what I think the future holds for Old Fort, both in terms of, again, its economic opportunities as well as its trail and outdoor activity. Yeah.
This entire Old Fort explosion was the culmination of a lot of key ingredients, but one of the main ones that kind of gave it a big jump start and more attention was when a West Coast clothing maker decided to move its operation from the Bay Area to Old Fort. We had David Billstrom of Kitspo on for one of our early episodes to walk us through that movement. So here we are a year later with lots of new things happening. So let's get a little update from David on how things are going.
David, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. This serves as a big milestone for you guys, but it also serves as kind of a big milestone for us with the podcast as well, because you guys kind of helped us kick off the first couple of episodes, so that means a lot to us, and for us to come back here to celebrate this groundbreaking ceremony, basically, a year of all this happening and to see some good progress. A lot's happened in a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So let's focus first on this groundbreaking ceremony. What was it like coming to this time? We've made this huge progress.
Well, the first 2 weeks of this year have been truly momentous. Today we have the groundbreaking, which occurred at light speed. If you know anything about government agencies and trail development or any kind of infrastructure planning, this project was approved by the Forest Service 5 weeks ago. It was funded, I want to say 10 to 11 weeks ago in November, and the ceremonial groundbreaking today is followed by, I think there's heavy equipment on Tuesday.
Wow.
This is really it. And they even took the unprecedented step of hiring 2 different contracting firms that will be building trail simultaneously in 2 different parts of the 6 miles. So that is why by the end of the summer, the 6 miles and the parking lot and the kiosk will be done. By the end of summer. This is unbelievable. That's less than 6 months.
And we're talking about the federal government here.
Yeah, it is really something. So here at Kitspo, we announced last week on January 10th, our joint effort with a 501c3 out of Asheville that develops both housing and commercial buildings for the underrepresented. And we're turning the large white building across the street into the Old Fort Community Building. And it will provide at least priority, if not exclusively, be women-owned businesses, people of color, employee-owned businesses. And we're taking the top floor, and other community tenants will be on the ground floor. And then a week before that, on January 3rd, we announced that Kitspo was being purchased by the employees, which is one of the ways that we qualify to be in the community building, and that we're a public benefit corporation, and we bought out the old shareholders. That's just the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot has happened in the first few weeks of the year. All of those are huge things, but what do you think, in your opinion, kind of takes the cake?
I think it's probably the community building, because that represents Kitspo's future in a literal way, pragmatic way. We will run out of space here to make product in about June of this year. So if I had to choose something, it would probably be the capstone. The employee ownership and the public benefit corporation, I've already started describing that as a journey instead of a milestone. Sort of like, when are you done becoming more sustainable? I don't know, right? So when are we going to be done becoming employee owned? I think that's a journey too. And we're just starting to learn what it means to be a B Corp. So we're on a journey, but the building, you know, there was a signed document with the County of McDowell recording the deed on December 30th. And we needed a couple days before we could announce it, but like, that's a milestone.
That literally changes this town.
The largest available real estate in the center of town, owned by an African-American led nonprofit from Asheville. That is really something.
About a year ago when we had you on the podcast, you guys were just kind of transitioning out of the PPE and then transitioning back into your normal garment production. Then we had a little bit of more COVID spike up, and I'm sure that brought some more PPE. But you know, you guys moved out here for many reasons, and one of them was to help with cost. Has it been exceeding those expectations?
It is off the charts. So COVID was the best thing that happened to the company in the sense that we didn't have to lay anybody off because nobody was buying clothes. And we scaled up operations. We went from shipping maybe 40 orders a day to 400 a day. So a 10 times increase in shipping is going to stress your logistics. And in this case, that team within Kitspo rose to the occasion. And today we ship 1,000 shipments, only one error. At the time, we were making a mistake about once a day. So we went from a problem with a shipment, wrong address, wrong method, wrong item, 1 out of 40 to 1 out of 1,000. So in many ways it was great, but in many other ways it almost killed us because it distracted us from our mission. So today, only 10% perhaps of any effort on any given day is on PPE, and everything else is on clothes. And now we've got 44 different items that we can make in Old Fort. And that has allowed us to completely turn off any sales of anything from overseas. So we did have a few last items from overseas inventory, and we sold them all off at the end of last year. And from here on out, it is just stuff we make in the United States. And then the team here has already become so efficient in how they make the clothes that on every one of those 44 items, we're making them for the same labor cost as we were in Vietnam.
That's impressive.
And our Vietnam numbers are from 3 and 4 and 5 years ago, before tariffs and before increased freight costs.
Yeah.
So we can say that we can now make clothes in America affordably, if affordable means the same as Vietnam. Now, as you know, we make premium clothes, we charge a premium price. And so it's not necessarily a model you could use elsewhere in apparel, but we get a lot of inquiries from other apparel brands. How did you do that?
How do you make that work?
Yeah. So we won't claim any special accomplishment. We're following Toyota Lean principles, and they've improved every other industry. So why not apparel? It just hadn't been applied in apparel.
Well, as you mentioned, you guys were growing and bringing more stuff over here. Like, there's been so many times where I've put up in the parking lot here, and I'm like, how is Kitspo going to still keep operating in that small building? I mean, it's not small, but this building's not big.
Yeah, and we're 23,000 square feet here, and half of that is warehouse and ride house, and half of that is production. So we have about 11,000 square feet of production now, and across the street we will have 30,000 more. So we'll increase our production capability to about 4 times what we have today.
That's great. There was the Pink Bike article recently of the announcement of you guys going there, and I'm not like trying to throw you under the bus or anything, but prior postings on the big sites, you'd have lots of comments about how this stuff's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. But then in this recent one, there were lots of really positive comments about what you're doing for the community, what you're doing for the employees, and the quality of your garments. And then also I did notice a comment referring back to our original Pisgah Podcast interview where you kind of broke down the cost of like.
Yeah, I think actually someone did posted your podcast link in the comments. Yeah, I looked at those comments too. You always got to like approach Pink Bike comments with a certain attitude. I mean, they veered off into political parties discussing healthcare. It is true we pay for our employees' healthcare, and we actually gave all the employees a cost of living adjustment on January 1st of at least 6%, kind of dependent on where you were. So all the hourly employees got a bump because we measured inflation, and it's real. We're out in front of that. We're not waiting for a minimum wage requirement. We're not waiting for employees to threaten to leave. And so all of our costs are definitely going up. There's no question about it. I thought the thing about the pink bike comments that really struck me is how many people recognized that if the item lasts for years, you're buying less and you're sending less to the landfill.
Yeah, because people were coming like, yeah, I just buy basic shorts from the athletics section of like the big box stores or something. Yeah.
And then they're trashed before the season's over. And other people testifying, hey, I've had my Kitspo for X years and I expect it to last for another Y years, and that's going to cost more, and that's okay. So I don't think that's for everybody. I mean, yeah, it's not for everybody. I have some lights on my commuter bike that are bright as a car, and other riders will ask me about them, and I'm always careful to tell them, just so you know, these are really expensive, and you could probably buy a used bike, an entire bike, for what these cost new. On the other hand, I've had them for 7 years, and they're still running, and I use them every day, and they're bright as a car. So there you go. I mean, I got my money's worth out of those the first 2 years.
A lot of cool stuff's happened in the past year with everything. What do you see driving the next year?
We doubled our sales for apparel from last year, and we intend to double our sales this year. And to do that, we need many more qualified sewers. And we knew that we'd have to train them ourselves, and now we realize it's an industry problem. So it's not really a secret. We're not holding back the news. We haven't made a formal announcement yet, but we're starting an academy to teach not only how to sew, but also sewing machine technicians. Because all of the positions in a modern apparel factory are missing in the United States because of the 35-year decline.
Oh yeah.
So it isn't just the sewers, it's the pattern makers, it's the people who cut the fabric, and it's the sewing machine technicians. So we're gonna have an academy here in Old Fort, and people are gonna be able to learn a new profession and get into a new career.
That's great. Yeah, because 30 years ago, that industry was booming, and then it just went away. So not only are you bringing some jobs back of that industry, but also the support of that industry as well, which is important.
Well, the other thing, Michael, is when we spoke a year ago, I would have said we've brought jobs, and I've had to retrain myself and say the more accurate statement, we're building careers. And we've promoted from within, and there's numerous people who are in increased positions of responsibility at Kitspo who started at our hourly lowest wage. And we're gonna create a whole cadre of people who view this as a respected profession that they're building a career in.
Anything else you think we should touch on?
I gotta go catch my breath. The last 2 weeks have been just incredible, and we're working on the academy right now. So no, I'm full up.
Well, awesome. Well, next time I roll through the parking lot, I'll beat on your window, and maybe we'll catch a coffee together.
Absolutely, please do.
Awesome, thanks, David.
All right.
Who can deny the excitement these people and businesses have around this project? Where else do you have this many people involved in a project that is actually coming together, and furthermore, everyone seems to be agreeable and on the same page? It's easy to be psyched on new trails, but let's also be psyched on the community that is bringing this together. Old, new, multicultural, I'm here for all of it. And I want to thank everyone that came out for the groundbreaking ceremony on behalf of the Pisgah Podcast, too. You folks are the reason that Mangler and I do this, and it was great to meet some of the people who are listeners. Thanks for coming up and introducing yourselves.
Yeah, I'd have to say one thing that I found interesting was, I think it was Roy that said something about how people within the organization were probably getting some knockdown, drag-out arguments at some point, which is probably inevitable at something at this level, but I think it's because of everyone's so passionate about it. But one thing, Drew, that I've not been seeing a lot of people get fussy about, at least on the internet, maybe I'm not looking in the right places or looking at the right Facebook groups or something, but no one seems to be like talking shit or being upset about anything mentioned about this. Everyone's just 100% stoked on this.
Yeah, I agree. And if you disagree, I'll fight you about it. Well, now that we have the meat and potatoes of this episode behind us, let's talk about some less fun things like weather.
Oh man, it is not good bike riding activities. Well, I mean, I guess if you're looking for some type 2 adventure fun, you can definitely find that. But we've got some nice sunshine right now, but it's still chilly. We got lows well below freezing with some highs just barely getting into the 40s. Melting some snow, but definitely not down in those hollers. It's definitely staying nice and shady and cold. Going into the weekend, Saturday actually looks like if you're going to bike ride, that could be a good day to do it, with highs not even getting above freezing, but sunny and windy. Drew, you've got a birthday coming up, so I know you're looking to celebrate this weekend with a fun bike ride of sorts. It won't be a warm and cozy one, but at this point we're trying to look at maybe getting some higher temperatures to warm up to melt some snow, but it's going to be wet for a while.
Yeah, I'll settle for a bike ride. I'm not going to necessarily worry about whether it's fun or not until afterwards.
Like I said, type 2 fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, that is a wrap on this week's episode. And as always, you can find us on social media. Just search Pisgah Podcast. We've also got the web store going with shirts, koozies, and water bottles, and you can check that out at pisgahpodcast.bigcartel.com.
And if you have ever wished for a longer loop than Ketsuma, but a shorter loop than Heartbreak, then go ahead and click subscribe, share with your friends, buy your friends a Listen to Pisgah t-shirt, water bottle, or koozie. Or buy it for yourself. Who cares?
We'll send it to you. Come on.
Yeah.
Out and back up the Star Gap. That's usually my go-to.
That's a good option, but I think for the after-work ride, Kitsuma just, leaves you wanting about a half of another lap, not a full another lap before sundown.
You could always just out and back the top of Kitsuma. Really?
Not on purpose.